To be free, purpose to live is reality. Hey, and I found myself never alone. Chances came to make me strong. To step right up and be a man, 'cause you need faith to understand. So we're saying that
Good morning, callers. This is George Wright, host of the Partnership Show, sponsored by Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership. Welcome to the show. Today is going to be a great show. It's going to be a very interesting topic, and I have a special guest in the studio with me, and also one of our Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership teammates on the line. We're going to talk about a subject that's near and dear to our hearts. Obviously, every week we start the show with a special song, and this one was dedicated to the subject that we're going to talk about, Reverend Monroe, which is to keep your head to the sky. No matter what happens, you got to keep your head in faith's atmosphere. So you may have heard me talk a little bit, but this is the guest, Otis Monroe, the Reverend Otis Monroe, and we're going to have Abram on the line. Abram, are you there?
I am here. Good morning.
Abram is a employee of the Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership, and today's show is going to have the theme of, well, you should have known. Last week we did Who Knew, and this week is, well, you should have known, and we're going to talk about, Reverend and Abram, this whole issue surrounding black men especially, and women, actually returning citizens. I mean, they have all sorts of names for this. They've got justice engaged or involved, and we're going to talk a little bit about a program the partnership runs called A Road Home, and we're going to talk about the work that you're doing, which is entitled Get Cleared, or it's this notion around making sure that individuals who have records, criminal records, can be expunged, can be cleared, so it clears the pathway, if you will, for them to become meaningful employed. So let's jump right into it. Once again, thank you, Reverend Monroe, for coming on the show. Before we dive into it, as we do every single week, we explain to our listeners, what is the partnership? What's the Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership? What do we do? So I'm going to turn that over to Abram. Abram, tell us how long you've been with the partnership, a brief description of what you do, and how you would describe if someone got on an elevator and said, well, you work for Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership. What do you do? And what is it? So, Abram, you take it from there.
Sounds good. Thank you. So I've been with the partnership for about 2 years now. I am a program manager. I get the pleasure of overseeing a couple of programs that the partnership runs. One is the Road Home, which is our reentry program for individuals who are justice involved. I also oversee our Opportunity Works program, which is a sector-based internship program for young adults ages 16 to 24. To answer the question, so who is the partnership, right? Who we are? We are a nonprofit umbrella organization that operates the largest publicly funded workforce system in the nation, serving Chicago and Cook County. We have a network of nearly 100 agencies in Chicago and Cook County that offer job search and training assistance, largely at no cost, to job seekers and businesses. We connect job seekers to careers and employers to talented job seekers to hire. We also have a team that specializes in working with employers to help them find the local talent that they need on their teams. And then if you want to reach one of our American Job Centers, you can call 800-720-2515, or you can find us online at levelupajc.org.
Thanks, Abram. So you've heard a little bit about what Abram does for the partnership, and then we're going to talk about the Road Home. But Reverend Monroe, I would love to have you kind of explain to our listening audience, what does Get Cleared? Why did you come up with this concept? What does it do? And what's its North Stars, if you will?
Absolutely. George, thank you for having me on the show, and good morning, listeners. I'm Reverend Monroe. I'm president and CEO of the Monroe Foundation, which is a 33-year-old community advocacy organization which leads the Get Clear Chicago initiative. So Get Clear Chicago is themed as the campaign to break the generational cycle of recidivism in Chicago and in parts of Illinois. And what we mean by that mobilizing theme is that while some groups are just focused on specific individuals or groups of individuals, men primarily, we have found in our work, which is now Get Clear Chicago's work, which is now in its 7th year, there are entire households in black and brown Chicago that have had some contact with the criminal system. You notice I didn't say justice. Often there is no justice in how that contact was initiated.
It's just us.
It's just us. So there's often no justice behind what led to that contact. It was often indiscriminate, unwarranted, and resulting factors that individuals will either who catch a case, have a case, or cases that are continuing from felony to misdemeanor arrests that continues to plague them in their job search, or if they're fortunate enough to have employment, in their job growth, as well as in their future individual development. So that's why we exist, to be the answer to what's not out there currently in the reentry advocacy.
Thank you, Reverend Monroe. So I'm going to quickly go to a caller who's been on the line for a few minutes, and then we're going to come back, and I want to ask the question of what I call the intersectionality between getting cleared and getting employed. Absolutely. Because that's kind of, the whole, it's once again, the notion of you should have known there's a program out there that will set you up on a trajectory where you can actually get a meaningful career. So, Jess, if you're out there, if I pronounced your name correctly, good morning.
This is Just Us Employment with Sister Darva Watkins, Just Us Employment.
Yes.
I wanted to share this with Cook County, people of Cook County in Chicago. When it comes to employment, I've been doing this, putting people to work for 40 years through other private institutions and other private sectors, because it's been very hard for our employment agency to get hired or to get contracts for employment. What I am finding out is that everything is the same. It's political. Yes, everything is the same. And so what happens, and I'm finding this out, and I will be contacting the Cook County Board President, because I know her very well, to find out why is Cook County Workforce and other agencies only selecting, seems like to me, people that they know or people that they want to work with or people for whatever the reason may be. But a lot of employment agencies are being overlooked, including mine, because of this nepotism and all of this other stuff. And I think that the workforce development has to be looked into, because I know about your organization for years, but I've never been able to get anyone to work with our organization or to work to help us to get some of the things that need to be guided for our employment agency. And I want to say this before I go. Our employment agency, we send people to training and trade programs, education, employment, entrepreneurship. Now, those are 5 entities that our young people need to be involved in. And so I had to go to smaller agencies that didn't have big funding to help us, and to even to private, like grocery stores and things like that, and restaurants. Those people will always let us come in to do what needs to be done, but it was always hard for us to be a team of the workforce development organization.
Well, thanks for your call. And if you would, could you actually give us your email address, and we'll have someone on our team contact you directly?
Yes. Okay, it's justusforjobs@gmail.com.
Just
us? Yes, just, J-U-S-T, us,
for jobs
@gmail.com. We also have a Facebook page. Now, I will say one more thing to prove to you that what I'm doing is it's real. Because most of the elected, when it comes to the Cook County Board of Election and the Chicago Board of Election, they definitely hire many of our people to work on election day to do judge of election and to work in the warehouses and to work in that capacity. Now, they have done that for the last 30 years with our organization or company, but other people just won't do it.
Right. Well, thanks for the email. Thanks for your call. And someone from the team will be reaching out to you. Really appreciate the call. Thanks very much.
God bless all of you. Thank you.
You too. Thank you. So let's get back to what I wanted to raise, which is this intersectionality, Reverend Monroe, with those who have been in the criminal justice system and those who are seeking employment, because that's the on-ramp, right? One of the North Stars, if you will, of the program that you're running is to make sure that people have this barrier removed, right? And this barrier of having a criminal record. Right. So, from a personal perspective, as a former employee in the financial services industry, when I first started my career, my fingerprints had to go off to the FBI. I had to be bonded. Right. And so if I had any criminal record, I wouldn't have gotten the job. Right. And then I juxtapose that against my as you know, my background of growing up in Inglewood, and I had to do I was asked to do a keynote speech at the Black Star Project mass graduation ceremony. And one of the stories I told was that I looked at my third grade picture, and there were 16 young men in that picture. And as far as we know to date, there's 2 of us out of 16. We're still alive. We've never been to jail, and we're not in jail. So I grew up in an era where the criminal justice system was a way of life in Inglewood. And so that can set you back. I've seen it set you back for decades, even a lifetime. So what say you about the intersectionality between how you actually are working with individuals to get them on the path of a clear record so they can be meaningfully employed? And then I'm going to bring you back in, Abram, to talk about how the Road Home program can actually be a viable option for those individuals. So,
Sure. Well, when Get Clear launched in 2018, our initial focus was on helping individuals obtain their CPD rap sheets, Chicago Police Department rap sheets. So through the support at that time of then Mayor Rahm Emanuel, who directed the Chicago Police Department to cooperate with Get Clear Chicago, we first modeled a program of what we call Pre-Rap Sheet Day, where we educated individuals on what their rights are under current law to determine with them if they are eligible to even petition for sealing and expungement, because everyone is not eligible to petition for sealing and expungement. There are some crimes that or classification of offenses or convictions that may not be eligible for sealing or expungement. So therefore, we have to determine with them what we term now relief options may be available to them. Certificate of good conduct, health care waivers, those kinds of things if they're looking to go into the health care field. But so now our new model that we're combining with the pre-rap sheet day, the education piece, know what options currently exist, combined with advocacy, that to reduce the eligibility period to even petition for sealing and expungement, which is currently under Illinois law, you cannot petition sealing or expungement until you have completed 3 years since your last incarceration or release from state prison. Now, this only applies to state prison. There is no expungement or release at the federal level. We want to change that because we think that's a barrier to employment, having to wait 3 years before you can even petition.
And is your point that if you do wait 3 years, there's a likelihood that those individuals will go back?
There's a very likelihood of recidivism because many of these individuals that are being released are being paroled from the Illinois State prison system, are coming into homes, back to families, back to girlfriends, back to someone that they know, and eventually we see this happen. And we know that in the black community, particularly if you're coming into a woman's home and she's having mercy on you, and at some point the question going to come, you need to help bring some money in this house. Mm-hmm. Let's just keep the conversation real. you're going to have to bring some money in this house, or you're going to have to bring more money in this house than what you'll bring. The little hustle here and there, selling socks or squares on the L, that ain't working. So that becomes stress on the individual, and that stress leads to the chance of recidivism. We believe that if we can reduce the time period that the individual has to wait to petition, put them on a track of more viable employment, there's more chances of reducing recidivism, reducing violence that often comes with the recidivism in the streets of Chicago. Okay. So our new model is moving not just to focus on know your rights, your eligibility rights to petition, and then the pre-rap sheet day, and then the rap sheet day at CPD where you get fingerprinted, we pay for your rap sheets, and then we pick up the rap sheet so that you never have to come back in contact with the Chicago police again after the initial fingerprinting. Because the Chicago Police Department has informed us that if there's an individual that gets flagged with a warrant, and if they were to personally come back to CPD,
game over.
The game over. They can arrest you on spot. So now we're starting to focus on what we call occupational friendly licensing opportunities. What are the licensing opportunities under current law that the state of Illinois allows for individuals with backgrounds of incarceration? That's the focus right now.
So, Ibram, quickly, because I have a caller on the line, I want you to briefly describe to our listening audience what is the road home. So, Reverend Monroe is basically said this is an on-ramp. They're reducing the amount of time that you have to wait. Individuals are getting cleared. Their records are being expunged or sealed. And so now they have an opportunity to come into the career space, which Chicago Community Partnership can actually offer through one of our programs. So briefly describe, Abram, what is the Road Home?
Okay. So the Road Home is a reentry workforce development program. It's currently being offered at 3 locations, Phalanx, Family Services in Pullman, which is on the south side, Serico, which is located North Riverside on the west side, and then we also have Safer Foundation in the south suburbs in South Holland. So we, in addition to what Pastor was mentioning, we also assist with the expungement and the sealing process to help try to remove some of the items that individuals might have in their background. But after that, we come in and provide all the support services that might be needed. So if they needed assistance with transportation, clothing for work or tools or equipment for work, the program provides that. Pasha also mentioned the need for making money. So we also have embedded into our program paid work experience. So we work with employers, and we cover the bill. So we pay the participant directly to no cost to the employers, so that the participants can get, 1, something that they can put on their resume, but 2, learn new skills so that they can find permanent employment. So paid work experience is a great opportunity to help put some money in their pocket right away, which is something that we know that they need. And then the end goal there is to hopefully that the employer, if it works out, they will hire the participant permanently once the paid work experience is complete.
That's excellent.
We also have training embedded into the program. So 3 big industries that are very background friendly are TDL, manufacturing, and construction. So those are 3 industries where we have training available to participants so they can get credentials to help them get placed in those 3 sections.
And those programs, I would imagine, offer a certificate as well, right?
Yeah. So
that actually works in the favor of an individual who's petitioning for sealing and expungement. It reduces the time period that they can petition for sealing and expungement because they're in a program that offers a certification. Yeah. Right? We should be working together because, with the Road Home, because George and Sir, we have this significant database of individuals from both. We just started to focus our efforts on the west side after being particularly in Inglewood for several years. We have found Phalanx to be a very strong partner. Safer is very known for its health care program and helping individuals obtain the qualifiable health care waiver. But I tell you, what's the difference between one of the three that you mentioned in terms of those partners? You can't, and you know what the numbers are being in terms of impact and enrollment and success. But I tell you, I'm a supporter of Phalanx all day long because they're on the ground.
Right.
They're in your faces.
Let's. I want to come to this notion of who's doing what, and also which employers, Abram, you mentioned are friendly, if you will. I think that's the term. So, but let's get Pastor
friendly.
Daniels. Right, Pastor Daniels, you've been on hold for a while. I want to get you in there if you're still here. Welcome to the show.
Well, I was going to hold forever if I had to. I've been looking for Dr. Otis Monroe, who's been hiding from us, and I live in the Inglewood community. I'm almost 70 years old. He just kicked me to the curb.
Oh, no.
Can't find him.
We lost contact.
But what I wanted to add to this conversation is that I've worked with people who have had negative altercations with law enforcement in the construction industry for the last 40 years. And we've been able to put quite a few of them to work without any, recourse of recidivism. In some cases, I've helped young men who had just got out but went right back in because they wouldn't change their circle of friends.
Right.
And when they changed, they would have life. And in construction, as anybody would know, it's almost like going to the Army. It's a regiment that you have to keep up and stay fresh and be ready every day. But Otis Monroe, please leave a number where I can contact you. I've been looking for you, man.
Let me give it to you right now real quick, and your listening audience as well. 773-315-9720.
Man, you had that number for 90 years. Y'all know Otis Monroe 100 years old, don't y'all?
Basically, you know it. But, yeah, call me
I
anytime.
love you, man, and I'm enjoying your show, young man. And keep up the good work, everybody, because what I tell people is we all should be doing something.
Absolutely.
Because Stevie Wonder had a song, haven't done nothing, and that's what most of us ain't doing nothing. God bless you.
God bless
Thank you, Pastor Daniel. So let's go to this question that I posed to both. I'll pose it to both you, Reverend Monroe, and Abram, which is, okay, so this all sounds great, right? I can go, there's resources out there and if you didn't know, you should have known, which is the theme of our show today, that can help you get cleared, get your record expunged, get it sealed. And then there are programs out there that actually can get you on this road of career trajectory.
Correct.
But it wouldn't mean anything if there wouldn't be an employer on the other end that says, I am willing to hire this person. That's hard. That is more than just a layup. It's because there's a stigma attached, right? Pastor Daniels mentioned it. Well, you're not going to show up on time. You're going to be hanging out with those same friends, and next thing you know, I'm going to be looking for somebody else. Right. You got bad habits. Right. You're not going to be a person that's friendly in the work environment.
You got trauma.
You got trauma
that
every
triggers
day
from it being institutionalized. Correct. and don't know how to deal with authority figures over
Exactly, because you haven't been in the work environment for quite some time, whatever that time frame is. So how do you actually answer the question, how important is it to have an employer who is actually willing not only to accept these individuals, but to embrace them? There's a movie out there, if you've never seen it, you should. Lawrence Fishburne actually starred, and it's called Always Outnumbered, Always Outgunned.
I love that movie. It came out in 1999 with Natalie Cole.
Exactly. It talks about this whole issue of a person who's trying to find a job, and everybody turns them away because it's like, oh, no, you've been in prison. Mm-hmm. So what say you about this notion of employer-friendly, and how important is that in this whole ecosystem of making sure that our young black men are not caught up in this system and they never can recover from it?
Well, it's extremely important, as in the advocacy it appears that Reverend Daniels has been doing. We've focused on working with construction companies, that black-led construction companies, that have the power and the ability to do their own hiring.
Mm-hmm.
So those who've had an interest in the construction, in the trades, we've done a lot of good work with Dennis Muhammad, who you know, with MDC Community and Economic Development Corporation, because he now has his own signatory agreements with some of the unions. He buys the union cards for the individuals. So that has worked very successful. But that's an example of someone who understands the plight of black men and black women.
Mm-hmm.
So as his capacity to win contracts increases, we have a constant flow of individuals that refer to him for training and employment. Outside of the construction trades, trucking has become a source of employment. To the work and credit of Phalanx, they offer a CDL program from time to time, and CDL licensing is an occupational approved licensing opportunity for background impacted individuals. I'm going to use that word, background impacted individuals. And then barbering and hairstyling has become part of the pivot now, because there's so limited number of individuals that are willing to take on the risk of hiring individuals with background, even though the state does offer various forms of liability insurance. Some individuals will say, we just don't want to take this on like that.
Right. So, Abram, you mentioned that there are three sectors in turn, and you talked about employer friendly. So mention those again, but also interject this notion that Reverend Monroe brought up about training. Because the other thing that happens that I've seen is that it's like, okay, I'll hire them, but there's no training. And then when they fail, then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. They say, I told you, I tried to help them, but they just couldn't cut it. What say you, Abram, about the training that's provided to put people on this path of success? So you're not just throwing people into an occupation, if you will, and then sitting back in amazement when they fail.
Right.
Yep. Great. Thank you. So the three sectors that I mentioned, I think probably the most popular one is TDL, which is transportation, distribution, logistics. So those are your truck drivers. That's actually one of the most common trainings that our program provides for returning residents. And that helps get your CDL, so driving the big trucks to move all the products that we enjoy on a day-to-day basis. The second one would be manufacturing. Manufacturing, I think, is kind of a hidden secret. It's something that it doesn't get talked about enough, I think. Some of the trainings in manufacturing, there's something called CNC, which stands for Computer Numeric Control. Fancy name. What CNC people do is controlled machines that mold anything you could imagine. Very, very good paying job. We're talking 50, 60K a year plus jobs starting off. CNC, you can get that in 14 weeks. Our program can cover it. The WIOA program can also cover it. Not expensive, and provides someone with a credential that is if you move to another state, it goes with you.
I wanted to ask a question before I forget. How do you address the individuals who have expired licensing or have hits on their licensing, driver's licensing?
So, depending on the nature and the degree, we have some level of funding to help pay for that. Again, depending on the extent. If someone has thousands of dollars in debt, that might be something we may not be able to help with. But if it's something that maybe an individual needs legal assistance with, we work with CGLA, which is the Cabrini Green Legal Aid Center, who provides free, if not reduced, legal assistance to individuals who might have, something that they, for example, like driver's license, there's something legal that is preventing them from reobtaining their license. We can access CGLA to help provide guidance on how they can get that reinstated.
And so, Abram, the training part of it, which I would really want to kind of have our WVO and listening audience understand, is that these programs, again, are not just there to say, here's the opportunity, but the opportunity is that you can be skilled up, you can be trained up, and you can be credentialed up, which now, as they call it, the old people used to call it greasing the skids for success. Because if you don't have those credentials, if you're not skilled up and you're not trained, then the likelihood that you're going to fail grows.
Right.
So talk to our listening audience once again around the training component of the program that, again, allows people to be on this trajectory of success.
Yep. Yeah, that's credentialing and upskilling is, I think, of the most importance in workforce development. I'm sure you've all heard it time and time again that there's a skills gap in virtually all industries. What that means is that there's people that just lack the skills to do very specific jobs. So that's where our industry comes in. You know, we find out what those occupations are. We understand what those skills are needed, and then we work with training providers so that individuals can get the training that they need to get these, most of the time, very good paying jobs.
So we've got, you know, if you think about this picture that we've created, right? We've got an excellent resource in the Otis Monroe Foundation and others that can work with individuals to make sure that their record is clear, expunged, or sealed.
Or on that path.
Or on that path to do that, which is critically important before they actually and while they're actually on this career journey.
Right.
Then we've got programs such as the Road Home, vis-a-vis the partnership, Chicago Workforce Partnership, that can not only help with training, skilling up, credentialing, but also then can connect those individuals to employers. We also then have employers who are basically friendly, who understand not only to accept these individuals, but to embrace them, right? That's the picture we painted. Mm-hmm. There's one missing piece. Those are the individuals. Mm-hmm. Once again, on this show, we always say that 51% of the responsibility of self is self. These people have to show up to the training on time. They can't miss training. They got to show up to the events that you're talking about as Reverend Monroe, where we're talking about, you know, we can look at your rap sheet. We can help you. We can put you up with a legal aid if that's what's necessary. But people have to take ownership of that. How difficult is that with this population, if at all, for individuals to take that ownership?
We have had very little problems with getting individuals to come to the pre-sessions, come to the rap sheet day, respond to the attorneys. We also work with Cabrini Green Legal Aid, which is overwhelmed. And that opens up a whole other kind of conversation of which Mayor Brandon and President Predwinkle could be a critical advocate and working towards the kind of resources Cabrini Legal Aid needs. But we haven't had any problem. I attribute that because we use trusted partners in those communities that know where the individuals that need to be enrolled in our programs, advocated for, they go to where they are. What made our event successful on January 29th in the Austin community is that we worked with one particular barbershop where a lot of the OGs and shot callers come and get their hair done. His and Her Barbershop, 5512 West Madison. It's a barber school, and barbershop. Promoted the heck out of the event. And then we worked with the local clergy in the area, Westside Ministers Coalition, Zoe Life International Ministries, Pastor Abercrombie. Mm-hmm. So we worked with trusted stakeholders that regularly have convening of events. Of all the groups, I won't name names. I've gotten a little better, George.
A little.
Just a little. But if you ask me, say, and what groups are you talking about? Then I'll tell you because you asked. But I just did my Mark Allen impression. Mm-hmm. But anyway, we cast a wide net. But it was only the Westside Men, Westside Ministers Coalition, Zoe International Ministries, Oak Park Housing Center, because they're big on the fair housing, the Just Housing Initiative, really spent time on the streets in the beauty salons, in the barbershops, in McDonald's, in the Vienna hot dog stands. They went where the people are.
So
And put the information in their hand. They didn't tweet it. They didn't social media it. They didn't email it. They put the information in their hand and said, this is why you need to come.
So your hypothesis is you have stacked the deck because you are working with local community partners.
Local trusted partners
who
that ain't afraid to get out in the street in front of folks.
Who understand the community, who are not afraid to actually be in those communities.
That's correct.
Because they're there.
That's right.
And they actually now provide referrals, backbones. They actually can talk to those individuals and make sure that those individuals are going to be committed.
Buses and bring them there. That's
Got
what
it.
Grace Memorial did.
So Abram, we getting the Reverend excited now, which is good. Which is good. So back to the question to you then. How much success with the Road Home program is contingent upon the individuals committing to the parameters and the tenets that the program is designed to provide?
Yeah, like you mentioned, if they don't show up, then they can't show out. So that's half the battle. I think we've had various degrees of success depending on, I guess, the person's specific background. I can say this, that individuals that have served some hard time, been in the prison system for more than a couple years, they usually are committed. Those individuals come out with energy. They come out and they're focused. We've had a lot of success with individuals that have served more than a couple years. Individuals that might have gotten something slapped on their record and didn't really serve any time. Less success. So I can at least mention that.
Why do you think that is? And I'll ask you the same question, Reverend Monroe. Mm-hmm. So, Abram, why do you think that there is a certain segment of the population, our returning citizens, that it's more successful, or I would say more bought in than others?
Mm-hmm. I guess it's that lost time, right? If you spend a couple years in the prison system, that's time that you haven't had in the community. You haven't been home. You haven't had with family, and you're trying to make up for that. We've had a couple individuals that we actually hired that served, really, really hard time, and that's what they mentioned. Not to share not too much information, but I've had stories shared with me that they've missed out on family members' deaths, parents' deaths, because they were in the prison system. This is
counterintuitive for me, and Reverend Monroe, I want you to jump in here, because a normal person would think, and maybe we have been conditioned to these words, well, those individuals have been institutionalized. Mm-hmm. And if you're institutionalized, there's very little hope for you. It's catching those individuals before they get institutionalized. What you all seem to be saying is that, no, it's the opposite. Those individuals that have lost that time are just as motivated and even more motivated than someone who just has something that come up and then they just say, well, I haven't lost any time. And what you're also saying between the lines is those individuals are higher likelihood to get into more difficult situations.
A lot of the younger guys still treat incarceration like it's a game. It's a badge. And to be in and out of the system. And while at the same time full of hopelessness and no sense of direction, no belief that there is a future for them. Whereas, as my friend just said from the path home, the older guys, they're tired. They want to get out. They want to be with family. They don't want the game anymore. They just want to move on with their lives. So yes, we have more success too with the older guys, usually in the 40 and up category. What we try to do to incentivize the younger guys is that you got to add a component that keeps some kind of money in their pocket. So with some of the funding we received from PNC Bank and from U.S. Bank and even from the Chicago Community Trust, which has been a big supporter of this effort through their Building Collective Power Initiative and the Field Foundation of Illinois, we use some of that funding to incentivize them when they are in a training program that does not offer incentives, which is one of the benefits, again, of working closely with Phalanx. A lot of the programs offer a stipend of some kind. That makes a difference. And I think, too, programs, George, my friend, that offer some behavioral counseling components as well. Because if you're not acclimated, or never been acclimated to a regimen of coming to work every day and applying yourself every day, or coming to work the Monday after the Friday you got your first paycheck, then what do you do with that? So it requires some serious screening as well.
Got it. We have another caller on the line. It looks like Karen just called in. Karen, you're on the line.
Yes. I noticed that you were saying up to 24, but then he was just saying that the better people to work with are the older ones. Do you work with people in the 30s?
Who you
and so, Otis Monroe, you can answer that question, and then we'll turn to Abram.
We can, because our funding is not restrictive. What happens is that many agencies, the federal government, for one reason or another, based on, here's that word, studies, and have determined that 18 to 24 is the most vulnerable age group that's mostly unemployed, socioeconomically desperate.
They call them white papers now.
They call them white papers
Yeah,
now.
there's a reason that they're white.
And so federal funding often restricts these kind of workforce development programs to a defined age group. Our private funding sources do not, but we're limited in what we can do. And so that's why it's easy for us to take, before George left Citibank, and his leadership role there. And I want to say in that life, George Wright, your host here today, in his role as community development manager for the market at Citibank, he's one of the few African Americans of leadership who invested in innovative approaches in the black community and funded those groups with real money. So,
but you will not turn away a person that is willing.
No,
that is it. And do you have a program that for 30 that you could recommend?
We have a program coming up on March 30th, and you can go to our website at www.themonroefoundation. It's a program that focuses on background occupational licensing. So we don't run a workforce program such as the partnership does. We focus more on individuals that have an interest in a certain occupation, truck driving, logistics, or hair styling. We focus on the occupations in Illinois that currently allow occupational licensing for, and we try to identify partners that offer that kind of training. And in some cases with the private funding, we're able to underwrite their participation.
And so, Abram, Karen wanted to ask the question. I want to turn it over to you, Abram, in terms of answering the question around age restrictions or parameters.
Yep. So the eligibility for our Road Home program, all you have to do is be over the age of 18. So 30 or 40, 50, doesn't matter. Just have to be over the age of 18. Have a background, right? Be what we call justice involved. And then the last one is just legally able to work in the U.S. Just those three parameters is what we're looking for the Road Home.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then you said March 30th.
Yes. Just go to our website, www.themonroefoundation.org. But, George,
thank you, Karen, for your call.
Karen makes a very good point. A lot of the typical age group of those coming out of state prison are in that late 30s to 40, 50-ish age group. And those are the individuals that are coming back into the community, back into the home, and are looked at as and want to move forward with their lives. And a lot of current programs do not offer that age group the kind of hope that they're seeking. And they end up going back into the system, unfortunately, or catching a new case.
Well, I think that if we kind of, once again, it's if you didn't know, you should have known the theme of our show. If it's a synopsis that we're actually looking at, we started talking about, making sure that there's a path to a career. And sometimes the barrier to that path, as we've identified, is a criminal record.
Absolutely.
Now, we talked about how your organization and the efforts that you've been putting forth, which are yeoman and innovative, actually seek to remove that barrier.
Right.
We talked about a specific program called The Road Home that the partnership offers that can pick up with that removed barrier and also maybe help with it a bit, but also can provide training, skilling up, credentialing, and the connective tissue between that person now and a real employer.
Absolutely.
Who is friendly to not only, once again, there's a whole thing that says we may have to be neighbors, but I don't have to be neighborly. See, some people accept, but they don't embrace. We want employers, and we connect those individuals to employers that embrace this community. And lastly, we talked about what the responsibility of those individuals that are coming out of the system into a new system and how we have to have new ways to support them,
Absolutely.
whether it's connecting with community-based organizations that you're working with or we're working with. At the end of the day, I believe that this is a growing population. I believe that this system is rigged. I believe that individuals are using our third grade, as the late, great Philip Jackson said, our third grade reading data to determine how many prisons they're going to build, because this is big money. And yet for our communities, this is a community killer because it's a family killer, it's a neighborhood killer, and it offers us the opportunity to think differently. The one thing I'll say in the minute and a half that we have left, and then we always go to our favorite song, which we end the program, is that, you and I met each other many years ago, and we worked on many initiatives together. And in my former role that you mentioned, I tried to understand how I could use the platform that God had given me in corporate America to help our people.
And you did.
And one of the greatest compliments that I ever received from anyone, quite frankly, was you. And I want to tell you that in person. And you probably don't remember it, but you said to me, George has been a senior person in a large corporation who is a black man who has never forgotten he is a black man.
Oh, yeah.
And that, to me, is the definition of your purpose of life. Why, if you don't forget, or if you forget who you are, you will never figure out who you should be. And so thank you, Abram, for being on the show. Reverend Monroe, you have been a great guest. Always great to talk to you. Always, and Reverend Daniels is still looking for you. But he said that you got the same number, and you've had the same number. Maybe he doesn't know how to dial that same number, right?
I'm going to blame him.
Exactly. So as we end our show each week, this song is near and dear to my heart, Reverend Monroe, because it's by the Gospel Clefs, and it's titled Open Eyes. Thanks, WVON listeners. We'll see you next Saturday. Take care.
Open eyes.